Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next episode of the SubQuery Customer Sessions. Today, I'm very lucky to be joined by Jackie from Litentry. Hey, Jackie, it's nice to have you here today.
Hi
Jackie,
everyone. I'm very good. Thank you so much
where
for
are you
inviting.
calling from, Jackie?
I'm calling from Shanghai.
Nice. And you're from the team at Litentry. Do you mind starting us off and telling us a little bit about Litentry and what you guys do?
Yes, of course. We feel like there is a lot of problem that we're facing in the Web3 world right now, and the major one is like the pseudo-anonymous blockchain networks. It makes it really difficult for services to validate fragmented identity data. So it causes some kind of problems. For example, users are not able to claim the full benefits of owning their identity data. Applications are forced to limit the range and the quality of their service. And also, there is a serious privacy invasion and personal data breach in practice at the moment. And so, what Linden is doing is targeting this kind of issue. So, we are a privacy preserved DID aggregator that serves a really unique function in the Polka ecosystems. And we're really providing liquidity, interoperability, and consistency of the multi-chain identity data. And Litentry allows users to really collect their historical cross-chain data, including their credit and on-chain reputation, and aggregate into one identity. So we're basically attaching identity to addresses. And of course, we are bidding for the parachain slot auction right now. And becoming a parachain, that means that we can maximize the efficiency of sharing the identity data between Litentry and parachain projects.
Yeah, the whole pseudo-anonymous, I agree. Like it's a big challenge with, finding out the identity of an address, who that person is. We've done some insights at SubQuery and we've been trying to figure out who owns a certain address. So I can imagine it's very, very useful around that, tying your identity to that.
Yes.
And what I like, there's probably a lot of potential and a lot of like use cases that we haven't probably even imagined by now in terms of what that might unlock in the future.
Yes, of course. So basically in Litentry, our master goal is to become a Web3 identity hub. And with an aggregated cross-chain identity, we believe that in the future, blockchains projects could offer really dedicated, graded identity service functions to power a better Web3 services. And I can give you some examples about Lendentry's use cases. So, for example,
Yeah, sure.
with asset holding status and your borrowing history and your liquidity providing history, etc., Linden can calculate your credit rating and to facilitate a analyzed DeFi service. For example, in the future, there will be a under collateralized lending protocol out there, and you can bring your Lendentry's credit rating to them and say, "Hey, I got a good credit rating from Lendentry," and that would force you into a good credit rating score trenches, which allow you to borrow at a lower collateral rate and also a lower interest rate. And with on-chain governance history, we really solve big issues and empower those with really good on-chain behaviors and special contributions in different on-chain governance. And also by bringing together your social medias like Twitter with Ethereum addresses, we really bridge the gap between two distinct virtual worlds and address a major concern in the NFT around usability and display channels. And also with all the on-chain activity data that we aggregate and attach to addresses, a user could really generate proof in a decentralized way and submit to other on-chain businesses like IDO and airdrop whitelisting. And there are so many more to achieve. And in terms of what we have built, we have products like my crypto profile, which connects identity and showing NFTs on your Twitter. And recently, we have a very big partnership with the Sandbox. And second, we have a ideal whitelisting service based on your on-chain identity information. So we have been helping a ideal platform called Polka Starter into providing them with a whitelisting service to filter out, our bot and unvaluable customers and applications for the IDO. And the
So
third
Jackie,
one,
are you saying to me that like you could potentially help solve the problem for me where like I have to continuously re-verify my identity and do KYC and AML again and again and again? Would Litentry potentially help? I could do it once and take that verification to other platforms.
yes, all you need to do is to link your addresses voluntarily onto the Linden. And in that case, all you need to do is to link once, and we will be continually renewing the status of your identity. So yeah, there's just one-time thing for users. It's pretty simple, straightforward.
Yeah. And then you mentioned a lot of different teams and different applications that would require working with other partners out there. So it's clear that, Litentry must have some aspirations to be partnered with a lot of different platforms, whether it's, DeFi applications or Starter, Launchpads, IDO platforms. How do you guys approach, partnerships in general? How important do you think partnerships are in this industry?
Yes, we do think partnership is strategically very important for us in terms of the Litentry runtime and palette itself, and also in terms of Litentry's DID's ecosystem. For example, we have 3 layers into our Litentry's infrastructure, and the first most important layer is the data sourcing layers. And we are actively partnering with many different open data source providers out there, for example, like SubQuery. And that's just going to make our process very easy and more efficient, that we can focus on what we do best, which is data analyzing. And of course, moving down into protecting our users' privacy, we are working with substrategies into moving the entire data aggregating and data analyzing into a trusted environment that really isolated the entire process of user data aggregating. And of course, we're talking about like infrastructure, and next moving forward, we need to have to talk about use cases. And we have so many different applications that are currently deployed in the Litentry's ecosystem that is all going to fully leverage the functionality of the Litentry blockchain. So we are definitely actively seeking partnership into building the entire ecosystem bigger and better. And we have a DID startup alliances that we invest and incubate projects that build around DID. So we have members like PNS, we have members like Web3 Go, and yes, we are still continuing building our DID ecosystem.
Yeah, no, it sounds expansive, and the opportunity is certainly there. So you mentioned at the start that you've kicked off your Polkadot crowd loan. I'm curious, why did you decide to skip Kusama and go direct to Polkadot?
So like, as we know that Kusama and Polkadot are cousins networks, and though like Kusama and Polkadot are based on the same technology provided by the Parity technologies, these 2 networks are fundamentally very different, and they have different focus. They have independent councils and designed to really go on a separate path. And we definitely see the benefits of having a separate network on Kusama. But to be honest, considering the preparation of work for Kusama auction is on a comparable scale to Polkadot. And also the network would also involve a really independent parachain token economy. It is quite impossible for us to regard a network on Kusama is merely a testnet, because we are rapidly grow into a relatively mature parachain with many different ongoing use cases and product lines that I just mentioned before. We definitely think that a network that prioritizes stability and security is definitely our best bet. Most
especially
importantly,
for on-chain identity, right? Especially for identity management, you want stability and security.
Yeah, it's just our protocol value. It's more closely aligned with Polkadot's value, which is evaluate cross-chain. And definitely our focus is to provide like a solid identity solution and to create an innovative aggregated identity protocol for the entire Web3. And we don't limit ourselves into working with projects only in Polkadot Kusama ecosystem team. We definitely wanted to expand ourselves into working with those projects on Ethereum, BSC. And it's just the Polkadot scalable, heterogeneous multi-chain network. It makes more sense for us to build on.
Makes sense, yeah. So Jackie, talk to us about what are your plans with SubQuery? How are you going to potentially use SubQuery in the future? What's Litentry's goals there, and how do we fit into it?
Yes, one of our main architecture layer of Litentry protocol is data sourcing layer. So that is the first step of everything. You got to get your data before you can do analyzing and do aggregation on it. And in which we really rely on very good existing data registries and indexing services to get original user data and offload the provision of data to external data providers.
And you're combining a lot of data from, different locations and different sources into one place, right?
Yeah, exactly. And not only limited to that, it's also, we want it to be traceable and unalterable, recorded by blockchain only. For example, the chain status, the historical transactions, and the events. And so that's where SubQuery become vitally important for us, because we definitely need a trusted source of original data in the Polkadot ecosystem, and that really makes our jobs more efficient and easy. So we can really focus on our core data analyzing and aggregation features.
Yeah, and so the data that you're combining into to come up with this decentralized ID, this DID, as you say, you're looking for on-chain data. Are you also combining that for off-chain data, or is it primarily traceable on-chain data, on-chain actions?
Yes, so this is where we really differentiate ourselves with other DID projects. So the majority of the DID projects out there, what they do is, they are indexing your data off-chain, your off-chain data, for example, your ID, your geographic location, your gender, your age, and then move that up as a credential into the Web3 world and bring that to the Web3 world as your credentials. But what we do is like we focus only on the open source traceable blockchain data that the users generates. And yeah, that's just our strategy. We don't want to touch any user Web3, Web2 information. Yes, that's just our strategy. There is no good or bad. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fair enough, right? And we've learned from the Web2 world that there's a huge trove of data out there. Bringing that data into a format that is usable for DID or for anything else is really important. Maybe finally, tell us, what's next for Litentry, I guess, over the next 6 months, apart from, your crowd loan and everything else.
Yes, of course. So after we successfully become a parachain of Polkadot, we'll be able to really deploy our mainnet. So all our use cases that I mentioned before now is basically off-chain at the moment. And after we went on mainnet, we started to connect all the pieces and put them together into running a whole new blockchain built on substrate and connected, interoperable with other parachains. So that's our goal in the next 6 months. After we become the parachain, we would be deploying our mainnet.
That day will be coming soon, I hope. And then finally, before you leave us, is there any advice you'd like to give people new to the ecosystem, maybe developers out there thinking about jumping into blockchain, teams that are close to starting? Is there any advice you want to give them, knowing what you know now, Jackie?
If you are interested in building something on SubQuery, if you really want to smooth out the process and save time, I would definitely recommend the builder to use, dictionary as much as possible, and to really study, the existing use case and study the, the official indexer that's already deployed, and that really allows you to learn so much about, how to build something in the ecosystem in a more efficient and effective way.
Yeah, it's always important to learn by following others' examples, right? Rather than having to try to rewrite the wheel. It's not the best way. Hey, Jackie, thank you very much for joining us today, and wish you the best.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you so much. Bye.